Okay. Well, that was fun. All right. So these meetings are scheduled once a month. They're usually the third Monday, fourth Monday. And for students who've not seen this before, they can be informal or formal. They're usually about 30 minutes long with 15 minutes for discussion. And we're hoping that each student will present once a year, and you need to discuss and sign off with your thesis advisor about this. And the key thing is it can be on any aspect of your research. So that's design, analysis, or the completion of your project. What's the format? Well, now we're using Zoom. You have to know how to share your screen. Okay, that's critical here. As I've shown, I demonstrated this as, that was actually what I tried to do. And it's usually about one slide per minute. You should have like bulleted points, just like what you see. I really don't like abbreviations, although if you've noticed, I used RIP and CCTES, even when I said I want to limit abbreviations, which is kind of funny that I did that. And when you have a graph, a lot of times what I've found is people tend to not explain their X and Y axes. So it'd be really nice if you have explanations on there when you show graphs. And the presentation should have like a beginning, a middle, and end, kind of similar to a paper. And I am going to be retiring later this year. And so if you need to contact someone, Shariza Bash, you should contact her so she can send out information to the faculty about your title or whatever. If you want to change the date or something like that. It also would be good to CC Taylor Phoenix in that. I forgot to put her in there. If the two types of presentations, formal and informal. The formal, they usually, these are, you have a doctoral proposal and you got a seminar and it's supposed to be held in the future and you want a practice session. And this is a great way to get a practice session. So use the RIP meeting for your practice session. You'll get good feedback prior to the seminar. And we already had Jiangjung actually did this last month. But also just remember you can have informal presentations and that can be on any, as I said before, any part of the process of your research, the beginning, middle, or end. And so this is our current schedule. Jia Zheng already gave his talk. We're having our introductions, and here's where I've listed all the other students and their presentations. If you want to change your time or date, then that's okay. Again, just contact us. But at least we have them set in stone now. Okay, I think that's all about RIP. And now I'm going to start off with myself only because I want to get it over with. To tell you the truth, that's the reason. So I graduated from Towson University, 1980, incredibly. And I started working at Johns Hopkins in 81. I got a master's degree in biostat in 87. And for some, I don't know, strange 20-year period, they did not put me on faculty until 2011. I'm not sure what took them so long, but it did. I teach one course with Jim Tanasha. It's an intermediate biostatistics course. I've taught it with him for 25 years. And in this course, we analyze a data set. We take a data set and usually using Stata, analyze it and write up the results and present it I have the students present it in a PowerPoint presentation. It's been really kind of fun. And Taylor was one of my students. I don't know if anyone else here has been one of my students in the past. And the last slide here, this is, it looks like a lot, but that's because I'm old. These are all the projects that I've worked on and I've worked on cohort studies, cross-sectional, case control, and if you're down at the bottom, I'm currently working on 3 major networks, NASH, GPCRC, and with Doug Jabs, the immunologic determinants of age-related macular degeneration. So this just shows I've worked on a lot of stuff, but it's only because I've been here a long time. So that's enough about me. And I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to call on one of the students at random, unless somebody objects. How about Lynn Nunn? Can you tell us a little about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'll just share my screen now.
Okay. Let's see if you can do it. Okay.
Can you see my slides? It's probably not in presenters mode.
Yeah, we can see.
Yeah, now, here we go. In contrast with Mark's presentation, it's going to be a brief one. Yeah. So, so I'm a second-year SCM student with our track, and probably a little bit history before that. I grew up in the northeast of China, and my nationality is Chinese, but I'm Korean in ethnicity. So I'm spared the one-child policy in China. I have a older sister, 5 years older than me. And before coming here, I have a medical degree in China. And about the end of the first year, so many thanks to Dr. Jenny Holbrook for taking me on the vaping observational research study. I'll be building my thesis research on this infrastructure. And this study includes about 70 electronic cigarette users and 70 non-EC participants. And the primary outcome of the original study was they're trying to study the composition of the oral microbiome comparing these 2 groups. And it just so happens that I will be coming into the study in the context of COVID-19. So in trying to formulate my research question, I had this very mind-boggling conceptual framework at this time. I can't remember how many times I woken from nightmares trying to disentangle this relationships. And in the end, we're just we have a lot of measurements beforehand, before the COVID-19. For example, the frequency of ECUs, and there's some symptoms, and also at the baseline, we have the social economic factors and income and access to healthcare and something like that. And we feel like a lot of missing pieces would just prevent the whole, trying to decipher the whole relationship. And in the end, we're trying to ascertain the stress levels of the EC users compared with the non-EC participants. And also, we were able to contact investigators from other institutions about their instruments in measuring such stress. So it's still, at this point, we're still trying to submit that to the IRB, since it will be a primary data and we'll be gathering. And yeah, and that's about it. I just hope that everything will be going forward according to the schedule. So a little fun fact about me, maybe that this 2 orchids represent one of my many failed attempts to keep a plant alive. And the withering one on the left, it just keeps reminding me that always be practical and stay relevant in designing your thesis, and maybe start small. And also is always just remember to breathe, especially during the pandemic. And that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. I'll remember to breathe. Taylor, can you give us a little bit background about you?
Yes, very good. Hi, everybody. I'm Taylor Binnix. I serve the Center for Clinical Trials as the Research Program Manager to Dr. Jabs. In addition, I am also an MPH student, but I'm not in the clinical trials track. My research focuses on suicide and mental health. In particular, I've worked on projects around familial perceptions of suicidal crises, so how a suicidal crisis affects family members and loved ones, and also suicide clustering, so when there's more than one suicide death in a community, the effect on the school and the surrounding area. I come to the clinical trials, the Center for Clinical Trials with a background in administration and widespread programming. So I've really enjoyed my time serving on the team. I look forward to continue to working with each of you to support administratively.
No, thanks, Taylor. Janet, do you want to give us a little background about yourself? Got to unmute.
First test, right? I apologize for not preparing slides, but I can tell you that Mark is a little bit older than me. But I actually studied as an undergraduate. I studied biochemistry at the University of Maryland and at the Baltimore County campus. And then I went to College Park and studied nutritional science for a master's degree. And I worked at the USDA for a while in it was the vitamins and minerals nutritional laboratory. That was human research. We fed people diets and things. And then I went to California and went to UC Berkeley. I entered for a doctoral degree. And I found out that I didn't really want to work in the laboratory anymore. I ended up working for a consulting company that was doing, we were doing surveys and worked with WIC and the food stamp program. So I ended up changing and getting a master's of public health at UC Berkeley and not completing my doctoral degree there. I continued working for a while for this little company that had the oxymoronic name of quality planning, because a lot of times we ran out of coffee. And then came back to the East Coast for some family reasons and started working at Hopkins. I always like to say I answered an ad in the Post and I was trying to stay on unemployment, and I'm here now. Yeah. 30 years later. But so in my job working with Mark and others in the study for ocular complications of AIDS, I was able to complete a PhD in epidemiology in our department and went on to faculty. I am teaching the Introduction to Clinical Trials, which Lynn and Ming Yi are helping me with, along with Yushi, to be the teaching assistants. And that's this coming up quarter. In the third quarter, I teach a class that is for, it's not for our track really. It tries to combine some of our track, little pieces of our track courses on data management and putting together MOPS and things. And it's really ties into this certificate program that we offer through the school. And I have to remind you all that you're getting a degree in clinical trials. You do not need a certificate. And so that's kind of my academic responsibilities, along with, advising and having a good time with Lynn. And Lynn's already started collecting some data. So, my research has been mostly in doing clinical trials, starting with SOCA, the studies of ocular complications of AIDS, and working on some other rheumatology studies. But now I'm mostly working with the Airways Clinical Research Centers. We've been a network for 21 years now, and we do work with asthma and COPD, and actually are launching a big epi study in lung health with young adults, with the idea of following them forward. The other half of my brain does works with Taylor and Dr. Jabs in uveitis studies, which has kind of been an ongoing a branch of when we started working in SOCA, ocular complications of AIDS. Doug was the chairman at a very young age at that time. And we've continued to work with him, and none of us are young anymore. And fortunately, CMV retinitis is not a problem, and we're working in uveitis now. So I'll end with that.
Great, thanks, Janet. Let's take a student. Xianji Lin Ying, can you tell us a little about yourself?
Sure. Let me share my screen. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Xiangji Ying. Xiangji is my first name. So my name is kind of pronounced like Xiangji Ying in English. You can call me Xiangji or anything similar to that. I wouldn't mind. Actually, I really appreciate that you are trying. I know that my name is difficult to pronounce. So thank you for that. Okay, so I'm a first year PhD student here at the track. I have a Master of Science degree in epi and a bachelor degree in clinical medicine. Before coming to Hopkins, I was a clinical epidemiologist in Peking University Cancer Hospital here in China. So my research was mainly focusing on gastric cancer, which has high prevalence and incidence here in China and several other Southeastern Asian countries, and also clinical trials and evidence synthesis studies. So if you can see this small photo on the left to the middle, that is me, along with several of my colleagues from the hospital. I think this photo was taken more than 1 year ago around 11 p.m. So we were either studying or working. So that's basically how my life was like. And I really enjoyed it. So my research interest can be divided in two parts. The first one is clinical trial methodology. In particular, I am interested in the innovative designs of clinical trials, such as adaptive designs, which are somewhat popular these days, and also sample size calculation, especially for small studies. As you can see, these are actually like the designing phase of a clinical trial. And I'm interested in this phase because of my previous work experience. I feel like the designing phase is kind of the most important part of a clinical trial. Once a trial has started, unless it uses an adaptive design, there may not be a lot of room for changing the design if there is, some issues about it. So I'm also interested in sample size calculation, especially for small studies. And this is because I feel like sometimes only researchers with many resources can conduct randomized clinical trials. But there are a lot of young researchers, young clinicians who are really interested in doing research and have wonderful research ideas, but they may not have that many resources. So I figured if we could somewhat decrease the sample size or maybe make the design more flexible, we could make randomized controlled trial more accessible to a broader range of researchers. But I think these two aspects involve a lot of statistics, so we will see how that will play out for me. And another of my research interest is meta-research. At this point, I am particularly interested in publication bias. When I was not working or studying, I really like traveling, especially to cities with beautiful landscape and natural things. So these are the photos that I taken from the past. I figured that maybe I could put them here and share with you. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Looks beautiful there. Can we take another faculty member? How about Shariza? Is that... You're muted, Shariza.
There, I'm pulling it up. So, but
Okay.
I can start off talking just about me. I graduated from Penn in 2003 with a bachelor's in health and societies and English. I actually did a double major for that. Let me know if you guys can see. Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, cool. And then after Penn, I went to Boston University and I got my MPH in epidemiology and international health. And then I worked at FDA for several years doing some rapid drug research based on the initiatives for the Center for Drug Evaluation Research. After that, I decided I needed a little bit more education. I was hitting a wall and I was getting more curious with no tools in my tool belt. So I decided to come to Hopkins and study epidemiology, concentrating in clinical trials. My dissertation, for those of you who are new to Hopkins and probably didn't see my many, many RIPs before this, it was primarily on drug safety issues. So I figured some of the other faculty members might be talking about some of these studies that I have listed here, but I wanted to highlight some of the interesting methodologies that we used, because I think for those of you who, you're starting to look for ideas for your own theses, these are some data that we have in-house that might be of interest to you, or you may want to talk to us about some of these issues. So I'll just jump right in. So STUDY was a study that we did. It's tying up right now, pretty much finishing up the final main publication for the findings, and it was a study looking at vitamin D, a dose finding study to see the potential efficacy in the reduction of falls among older adults. So this one I wanted to highlight was a Bayesian adaptive design. And we had some interesting outcomes in that study, primarily around physical functioning, for those of you who might be interested. SCITAD is another efficacy study that we did. We were looking, or currently doing rather, we are looking at escitalopram for the treatment of agitation among Alzheimer's patients. We have a built-in enrichment population design for this study. So essentially we have a period where they're given non-pharmaceutical treatment to see whether or not there's any efficacy in terms of the agitation symptoms. And Stefan, correct me if I'm wrong in saying anything here about this. Good, okay. And another thing about this, because it is ongoing, we had to implement quite a few study changes due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So in terms of study design, it's a really interesting case study to take a look at. NAPRO is our IVF study. We're looking at two different methods for the reduction of preeclampsia in women who undergo frozen embryo transfers. For this study, we're also using medical record extraction, which is something new for myself. I don't know if any of you have any experience in that, but it's been a learning experience thus far in terms of designing how we're actually going to get that data. The final one I have listed here, it's actually two trials involving convalescent plasma. And of course, you guys have probably been following the news, so you know roughly what I'm talking about with this, but we're looking at convalescent plasma for the treatment of COVID-19 and prevention of development to COVID-19 between the two studies. These studies are done in an emergency setting, so in and of itself, it's a very novel area to work in. And we're also implementing study changes based on emerging science, so that has also been pretty interesting to go through. If you guys have any questions about any of these studies or you want to learn more, feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to chat or direct you to who may know a little bit more to tell you.
Wow. Thank you, Shariza.
Sure.
Very interesting. Len Wang, would you like to tell us a little about yourself? And thank you. Okay, we can't hear you. But I don't think you're on mute. No, still don't hear you. Okay, no call him. We'll get someone else. What other students do we have here? Riaz, can you share your screen with us?
Yep, for sure. So I somehow missed that as well about the slides. But I can share something I just very
You can just talk if you want to. Yeah, that's fine.
So just as a introduction, so I am a fourth year PhD candidate. I am obviously in our track, and my bachelor's was in public health from the University of Waterloo. My master's was in epidemiology and biostatistics from University of Western Ontario, and then I came straight here. So it's been a long, fun ride, and I'm looking forward to finishing at some point in the next year. My research interests, sort of got onto epi and stuff, was introduced to that in my undergrad. And then with some sort of research teams I was doing where they were doing things like health quality assessments and cost effectiveness analyses, those kinds of things for the government or private industries. And I thought that was really cool. And so I looked for programs to learn a bit more about that. And yeah, then that led me to Western, where I sort of got involved with the research there. It was again meta research, which really tied me into the whole field and world of studies of studies. And so one thing what I looked at for my master's thesis was sort of evidence reversal or medical reversal, this phenomena where you have a standard, something that's used, and then new evidence comes out. Maybe something is only used because it's always been done that way, but it's never actually been tested. And then you run a trial on it and you find it doesn't actually work. And so I was looking at that. And then in looking at, a lot of that and the issues with meta research led me to obviously Hopkins. And yeah, it was luck, I think. A lot of luck, the harder you work, the luckier you become, my grandfather always said. And Hopkins was the school that accepted me, and I was sort of looking forward to a year off because I had gone straight through. But then you can't say no once you get sort of an acceptance like that. So I came here. And my research has been in basically here, or my dissertation research at least, is focused on adverse events and harms. So the whole gamut from collection in primary studies to presentation of that data and then synthesis of that data. And so next month, I'll be presenting research in progress for one of my aims that's just wrapping up completion, working on the paper. The first draft should be done at some point this week. And that is the systematic overview review on methods used for analysis and collection and reporting, the whole how harms are assessed in systematic reviews. And so that's what I'll be presenting then. And just a couple, most people here who've attended any sort of parties that I've gone to know that I'm a musician. And I am Canadian as well, so lots of snow back up here right now. Snow hasn't started yet, but it's getting cooler. And this is my partner, Steph, as well, who some of you have met. But yeah, that's basically it. There's a lot of things I could have put up here for interesting things because my hobby is sort of collecting hobbies. So lots of things like Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons, painting miniatures or modeling, leatherworking. All kinds of things that I've picked up and do, as in my spare time.
So Riaz, I'm a musician too. What kind of guitar are you playing down there?
That's a Gretsch.
How many guitars do you own?
6.
Okay, I got 8, so
Nice.
got a couple more to go.
Yeah, a couple more to go.
Great.
Focus on a lot of other instruments too. So.
Okay, Lynn, are you able to talk to us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Thank you. Let me share my screen. Can you see my screen? Okay.
Yeah, we
Thank you. So I'm Ling. I have a medical degree from China. I did my Master of Science here at Hopkins, the same track in clinical trials and evidence synthesis. So you can see how I really like and enjoy this track. I'm continuing my PhD here, and actually it is my last year in my PhD program, hopefully. So I used to work for the Chinese FDA. Now it's named NMPA, National Medical Products some Administration Agency, something like that. Fun fact, I'm a dog person. I used to have a Chihuahua, and he passed away in his like 14s. So basically, yeah, of old age. And I really loved him. So my hobbies and interests. So I love traveling, as Shangji does. I really like traveling too. Maybe we can travel together sometime, Shangji. And I like scuba diving. So I went to Philippines and Japan to do scuba diving once. So I will describe myself as professional, friendly, and positive. The best way of knowing me is through coffee or lunch together. Hopefully the pandemic will end soon and we can all have time to have coffee or lunch together. So my research interest is in comparative effectiveness research, network meta-analysis, matching adjusted indirect comparison, and economic evaluation, especially in cancer treatment. So a few recent updates. So I applied and got the Pharma Foundation Hero 2020 Predoctoral Fellowship. So I worked for AbbVie in its health economics and outcomes research department this summer, and I'm continuing working for them part-time. I just submitted my AIMS-1 to JAMA Oncology and got accepted. This term I'm TAing MDAX. And also an interesting experience is that I got the rare opportunity of serving in a DSMB board for a phase 1 trial, which is a really interesting experience for me. And feel free to check me out on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Lynn. Okay, let's go with the faculty member. I keep seeing Stefan here on my screen. Can you tell?
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Stefan Erhardt. So I'll start with a fun fact. I'm a cyclist. I'm terrible at music. And though we now
be in the band.
And though we now have a cat, that's really for the kids. So I'm also not a big pet person, but I love cycling, and I've been cycling for a long time, and that's really enjoyable. Since I have this the family with 3 kids, I typically head out early in the morning and to get my miles in. Okay, so I talk funny because I'm from Europe. I have a medical degree, and I actually practiced medicine for a number of years. I was trained across a number of medical disciplines. And I finally then decided to go to be a researcher full-time, receive training in epidemiology, biostatistics, and started as a malaria researcher. Lived and worked in a number of African countries, mostly West Africa, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, but also East Africa, Tanzania, and Uganda, and a few other countries also more to the south, like Lesotho. And I came here in 2000, very late in 2011 as a faculty member, and started right away to teach epidemiologic methods too. And I did that for much too long. And at some point it occurred to me, I've been doing that for so long, I should really ask for a break. And David Celentano said something along the lines, yeah, you could have asked earlier. So sometimes it's good to just ask if you can be off the hook after all those years. Okay, and I even prepared a few slides. Let's see what we have here. Let's go with that. So I decided to just talk about, I hope you can see that. I decided to just talk about one project that I really enjoy doing. And it's about, about reducing mother-child transmission of hepatitis B. So a few years back, a few colleagues of mine and I, we wrote a piece in the Lancet Infectious Diseases, kind of summarizing strategies to reduce or maybe even eliminate mother-to-child transmission of hepatitis B. And I have the main box here. At least I hope I do. Yes, here we go. So mother-to-child transmission is maybe surprisingly for some still the major mode of hepatitis B transmission globally. So you see an estimated 4.5 million incident infections annually. And the tricky thing about mother-child transmission is if you get it as a child, if you get hepatitis B as a kid, your chances of developing liver cancer are really drastically increased because you had the infection very early in your life. And since this is not exclusively, but since the burden is really in low-income countries, this is something that is very hard to treat. So your probability of dying on your liver with your liver cancer is pretty high. And mother-child transmission is really determined by hepatitis B DNA concentrations in the mother. So that the higher those concentrations are, the more likely she will transmit to her kids. Also, there's also other factors that influence transmission risk. Okay, and there are few options to do something about it. And I think the most promising option to do something about mother-child transmission is antiviral drugs in pregnancy. Obviously, those have to be safe for the mom and for the fetus, and they should be very effective in lowering the hepatitis B DNA, ideally to undetectable at birth so that she doesn't transmit in the first place. And we have a project on that that's funded by the Thresher Research Fund. And that's a project at the Thai-Burmese border because there's a lot of childhood hepatitis B going on, a lot of mother-child transmission going on. And here we are really trying to test a certain drug and find out how early in pregnancy do you have to give it so that most of the women become undetectable at some point in time. Now that's a little tricky because those hepatitis B DNA levels in the women, they can be high, they can be low. And what's the point of determining some rule that works for everybody or for almost everybody? And the point is that in low-income countries, you can't measure, you can measure hepatitis B DNA levels or something like this. This is a very expensive PCR test and all that. So you need to try and develop a policy, a rule to treat, the pregnant population, and that policy should work. It won't work for everybody, but it should work for almost everybody or for most of the people. So this is what we're trying to do. What is the ideal point when you would start hepatitis B treatment in the pregnant woman so that when she comes to her delivery, she will have an undetectable HPV DNA. So that's a very, very policy focused type of research. And of course, we are now in the phase of determining that time point, and then we will test. We will test that in a larger population. And I decided to just show you a little bit of the setting. So when you fly to Bangkok, and then you get onto your small plane, you fly to that study site, which is remote at the Thai-Burmese border, and you see this is made out of a plane, so that you see rolling hills, you see a lot of trees, a lot of vegetation. This is the rainy season. It's very, very wet. It's a pretty area. And in the rainy season, this is how the area where we work looks like. You have all those rivers that make it very hard for the pregnant women to get to their antenatal care places of antenatal care delivery. And in fact, many don't make it in the rainy season, which of course is not only bad for the study, but bad for all those pregnant women in general. So the first thing we did is we purchased boats, and we purchased many boats. I think we have more than 20 boats running to have taxi services at certain strategic points to bring bunches of women over those streams to bring them into our healthcare facilities. Now it's more than 12, or I think it's 13 healthcare facilities where we are working, where we do that research, and that works pretty well. Not always, but it works pretty well. And you need good outreach people, and this is our outreach coordinator. We've been working with her for years. You can see she worked with the CDC before, so she came highly recommended. And she has a fleet of nurses and lay healthcare workers who will then actually be like multipliers. So these will then be people who will be able to carry this to the field once a larger trial is rolled out. So just to give you an idea, this is what the healthcare facility might look like. These are pretty well built and in good shape. What I love about that particular photo is that you can immediately see that this is something where antenatal care happens, because it has a pre-specified belly check room. So some of you might see that there's this little sign in the back, belly check room. So I loved that. I needed to take that picture. Okay, and I think I probably went far too long. Sorry about that, but I wanted to share that story.
Oh, great. Thanks, Stefan. Minji? There we go. I see. Great.
Hi.
A little about yourself or share a screen. Thank you.
Sure. So this is me. I should say I'm sorry that I didn't plan for the slides, because I just know I should present something today. It is sorry I didn't receive the email, but it's okay. The only thing is
it's very informal.
Yeah, okay.
Don't have to apologize.
I thought it is formal, so I was a little bit anxious about it.
Don't be anxious. Okay.
So I just used the slides I made before to just give a brief introduction to myself and what am I doing. So I'm now a second-year MHS student in epidemiology within this track, and I was graduated from Peking University Health Science Center for my undergraduate degree. And then I decided to come to Hopkins for a master's degree in epi, because I would like to learn something that could better make up the gap between basic medical research and the practical clinical usage. So I'm now working on my thesis study under the guidance of Dr. Kong and Dr. Irvin. And I was learning the correlation between EasyVest and virtual function of the macula in retinitis pigmentosa. So it was a study based on the baseline data from the FIGHT-RP trial and the Wilmer Eye Institute, and some outcome parameters like the best correlated visual acuity and mean macular sensitivity were used as the outcomes to measure the visual function. So the purpose of this study was just to measure the correlation between visual function and visual structure using different parameters. And generalized estimating equations and linear mixed models were used to perform the analysis. And all the results show that there is a significant correlation between outcome parameters and EZVAS. And what we found interesting was, so the results from different models with different options and from different software are actually have some difference. So what I'm now doing is actually performing a simulation study, comparing models with different options and also between software to see if we can give a general guidance on which model to be used in which software under bivariant correlated continuous data. And so because this is a type of data that is very commonly to be dealt with in epidemiological studies. So that's what I have for my study, and I hope I can talk about it more maybe later in the research in progress. I'm very happy to hear about your experiences, which I can truly learn a lot from. I'm very interested in doing research, and I wish I can do something meaningful in the future, like you. And also in my spare time, I also love traveling. And I hope I can have opportunities to talk with you more in the future. And so thank you.
Okay, thanks so much for telling us about yourself. So what I see, I think we've gotten through all the students and faculty, and I may be wrong.
I think Jerry's there.
Oh, Jerry, sorry. I was wrong. Okay, good.
No, you are right. I just Thank you so much for having me. I thought I would come to the meeting all the time. Although I have graduated this summer, I think it's still a good opportunity to rejoin the group. For every people I know, I think I feel more comfortable, in joining this team. And a little bit of introduction of myself, so I can spare some time for other people who haven't talked yet. So I received master degree in Rutgers University, and after that, I worked in the Cancer Institute of New Jersey for 2 years, mainly for using the causal inference or statistics models to assessing the, repurposing of 2 drugs on the prostate cancer treatment. In the meantime, we also transferring from the bench work to the clinic side of using these 2 medications in the population. And we are in the team of design a small trial in treating the prostate cancer, and the trial is still ongoing. So after that, I feel like I need to have more box tool in my background, and I decided to apply for Hopkins and luckily get accepted. And over the 3 years, I initially working with Dr. Tianjin Li as my primary advisor for over 2 years. And I got a lot of rich experience over the study and training period. And after that, within the last year, my advisor is Dr. Jennifer Schreck, who is also a aging track director. And my thesis committee is Dr. Pradeep Ramlu, who is the director of glaucoma service in the Wilmer Eye Institute. So I think over the last 3 years of training in Hopkins, I think I got a lot of work have been done and still keep going. I think my three aims have been published by the time I graduate. I think these give me a lot of things and challenges that I want to continue working in Hopkins. So currently I'm a postdoc in the Wilmer Eye Institute with Dr. Ramlu, and also my co-mentor is Dr. Jennifer Schreck as well. So I think I can envision we have a lot of collaborations, and I mean, we are doing the different studies, but mainly come from the same theory and as the epidemiology as a whole. So just looking forward to join the team.
Thanks, Jerry. Yeah, once Hopkins in your blood, it's hard to get rid of it, isn't it? So, there is someone named Bob Massoff. I'm not sure. Would you like to tell us a little about yourself?
Yeah, well, I'm not formally part of this group. I'm a professor of ophthalmology and neuroscience and on the Wilmer faculty for about 45 years. And like you, Mark, I'm retiring at 11:59 on December 31st. So, but this showed up on my calendar and it looked interesting. So I thought I'd drop in to see what you were up to. And it has been interesting. Most of my work, and I've also been a long time colleague of Doug Jabs, so I try to follow what he's got his fingers into. My research is centered, in the last 20 years primarily, is centered around patient-reported outcomes and performance-based functional outcomes. And I'm doing consulting for some pharma companies that are doing gene therapy studies and gene therapy trials in inherited retinal degenerations, and primarily focusing on how to analyze their outcome data. So, so a lot of what I've heard here has been very interesting to me, and thanks for letting me eavesdrop on what you're doing.
Sure. Well, thanks for introducing yourself. Tell us a little about yourself. Again, I want to make sure I haven't forgotten anyone. Are we good? All right.
Dr. Jabs?
I'm sorry?
Dr. Jabs.
Dr. Jabs?
No, he was going on and off, so he didn't want me to talk to him or have him speak. He'll introduce himself at another time. So I guess we got 2 minutes. We're gonna see, I think Riaz is next month, right? So hopefully you all can join us for that one. And thanks everyone for telling us a little about yourselves. The idea is for the students and the faculty to kind of get together and collaborate, try and find someone who you think might, mentor with you or so forth. And I think we certainly see a lot of things from both the students and the faculty here for collaboration. So thanks again. And we'll talk to you at least in this RIP meeting in a month.
Also, thanks, Mark, for moderating this for however many years, so long before I started. So.
Oh, you're welcome. And yeah, Shariza will be taking over this hopefully very soon.
Yep.
Okay, bye-bye.